Once you have recognized your overwhelm and taken the courage to step away from the noise, something profound begins to happen. You create the space to reframe your perspective. And that space is not just empty air. It's fertile ground where new ways of seeing can grow. Because here's the truth: the way you experience life is not shaped solely by what happens to you, but by the meaning you assign to it. Change the meaning, and you change the entire story. Life will always have its challenges, its disappointments, its unexpected storms. You cannot control that. But you can control the lens through which you see them. Two people can live through the same event, and one will see it as a complete defeat, while the other sees it as the beginning of something new. The difference isn't in the event, it's in the perspective. Psychology teaches us that the human brain has what's called a negativity bias, a tendency to focus more on threats, problems, and pain than on possibilities or beauty. This isn't because we're pessimistic by nature. It's because for thousands of years, our survival depended on noticing danger. But while this bias kept our ancestors alive, it often keeps us stuck in cycles of fear, anxiety, and hopelessness. Reframing is the conscious act of challenging that bias. It's choosing to ask, what else could this mean? What else could be possible here? It's not pretending bad things are good. It's finding the meaning in them that allows you to grow instead of crumble. I remember speaking to someone who had just lost their job. They told me, "At first I felt like my life was falling apart. But now I'm starting to realize maybe it was falling into place." That's the power of reframing. It turns endings into beginnings, obstacles into teachers, of failures into stepping stones. And when you start seeing life this way, you stop living in constant resistance to reality. Philosophers have long understood this. The Stoics believe that while we cannot control what happens to us, we are always free to choose our response. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our attitude. Reframing lives in that space. It's the moment where you decide whether a situation will define you or refine you. But here's the challenge: reframing is not automatic. In fact, it often feels unnatural at first because it requires slowing down the mind's instinctive reactions. It requires you to look at pain without flinching, and then to step back far enough to see a bigger picture. And sometimes that bigger picture is not visible until you ask the right questions of, what could I learn from this? What is this teaching me about myself? How might this be preparing me for something better? When you start asking those questions, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and start becoming a participant in it. That shift alone can transform not just how you feel in the moment, but the entire trajectory of your life. This doesn't mean you deny your feelings. Reframing is not about saying, it's fine, when it's not fine. It's about allowing yourself to feel the loss, the anger, the frustration, but then choosing not to live there forever. It's about honoring the pain without handing it the keys to your entire future. If you think about it, much of our suffering doesn't come from events themselves. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves about those events. If someone betrays you, you can tell yourself, this means I'm unworthy of love. Or you can tell yourself, this means I now have the clarity to walk toward healthier relationships. The event is the same. The story changes everything. And here's something liberating: perspective is a skill. The more you practice reframing, the more naturally it comes. At first, you might have to remind yourself, wait, maybe there's another way to see this. Over time, your mind starts doing it almost automatically. You start meeting life with curiosity instead of dread. You start replacing "why me?" with "what now?" There's also a deep spiritual truth here. Many traditions teach that the world you see is a mirror of the world within you. If you see only chaos, perhaps there is chaos inside. If you see possibility, perhaps you have cultivated it within yourself. Reframing is a way of aligning your inner world with the kind of life you want to live. And sometimes the act of reframing is as simple as gratitude. Gratitude doesn't erase hardship, but it balances the scales. It reminds you that even in the midst of pain, there are still things to hold on to. Even in the darkest seasons, there is still light somewhere. It might just be a little harder to see at first. If you truly want to reset your mind and soul, you must master this art. Because without reframing, every challenge feels like an ending. With it, every challenge becomes a chapter. One that may hurt, but also one that moves the story forward. So when life gives you something heavy, I want you to remember this. You cannot always choose the weight, but you can choose how you carry it. You can carry it as a burden that crushes you, or you can carry it as a tool that builds you. The choice, as always, is yours. I'll leave you with this thought. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control the story you tell about it, and the story you choose will determine whether you simply survive your life or whether you rise through it. When you begin to reframe your perspective, you create a powerful shift in the way you see life, but that shift needs a foundation. Without inner stillness, even the most beautiful perspective can be shaken by the next storm. And this is where many people struggle, because in a world obsessed with speed, stillness feels unnatural, even suspicious. We've been taught to believe that if we're not moving, we're falling behind. But what if I told you that stillness is not the absence of movement? It's the presence of awareness. Inner stillness is not about stopping life. It's about learning to live it from a place of calm clarity. It's the ability to stand in the middle of noise without letting it invade your mind. It's the difference between a lake that reflects the sky and a stormy sea that distorts everything above it. And here's the truth. No matter how much you recognize overwhelm, disconnect from noise, or reframe your thoughts, if you don't know how to create stillness within yourself, the outside world will always find a way to shake you. Now, I know some people hear the word stillness and immediately think of sitting cross-legged for hours in meditation. And while that's one way, stillness is not a posture. It's a state of being. You can experience stillness while walking, cooking, painting, or even during a conversation. It's not about freezing the body, it's about quieting the constant commentary of the mind. Psychologists have found that much of our stress isn't caused by what's happening to us, but by the endless mental chatter about what's happening. We rehearse the past, predict the future, and analyze every possible outcome, often without even realizing it. Stillness interrupts that cycle. It doesn't remove your thoughts, it simply allows them to pass without pulling you under. The great spiritual teachers have always understood this. They spoke of stillness not as an escape from life, but as the purest way of meeting it. The Buddha taught that the mind is like water when it's turbulent. It's hard to see. When it's calm, the truth becomes clear. The same applies to us. When our mind is in chaos, our choices come from fear and impulse. When our mind is still, our choices come from wisdom. But here's the challenge. Stillness doesn't happen by accident. In the same way you must intentionally create time to rest your body, you must intentionally create space to rest your mind. That might mean starting the day in silence before you speak to anyone. It might mean stepping away from your desk in the middle of the day just to breathe. It might mean sitting under the night sky for 5 minutes, allowing yourself to simply exist without solving anything. Some people say, I don't have time for stillness. And I always remind them, you don't find time, you make time. Because stillness is not a luxury, it's maintenance for the soul. Just as you wouldn't drive a car endlessly without stopping for fuel, you cannot drive your life endlessly without stopping for stillness. And here's something to consider. Stillness is not only for peace, it's also for power. When you can remain calm in the midst of chaos, you make better decisions, you see opportunities others miss, and you avoid being pulled into every emotional storm around you. You become like the eye of the hurricane, centered, unshaken, yet fully aware of the world's movement. Think about the most inspiring leaders, the wisest teachers, the most grounded friends you've known. They all share this quality, an unshakable presence. That presence comes from cultivating stillness. It's not that their lives are free from challenges. It's that they've learned not to let those challenges own their mind. For some, the practice of stillness begins with the breath. Breath is the one constant we carry from the moment we are born until the moment we leave this world. Yet most of us hardly notice it. By paying attention to it, even for just a few minutes, you anchor yourself to the present moment. And when you are fully in the present, the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future lose their grip. Others find stillness in movement, in the rhythm of walking, in the flow of painting, in the focus of playing an instrument. It doesn't matter how you arrive at it. What matters is that you touch it often enough for it to become your inner home. Because when stillness becomes familiar, chaos stops feeling like the end of the world. It becomes just another weather pattern passing over the lake. You stop identifying with every passing wave of emotion, and you start seeing yourself as the lake itself, capable of holding it all, yet defined by none of it. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about stillness is that it allows you to hear what life is trying to tell you. We often say, "I don't know what to do," but the truth is we do. We've just drowned out the answer with noise. In stillness, the answer doesn't shout. It whispers. And in the quiet, you finally have the chance to hear it. So I'll tell you this, the world will never stop asking for more of you. It will never pause on its own so you can catch your breath. That pause has to come from you. Create it. Guard it. Return to it as often as you need. Because without stillness, you will always be at the mercy of life's storms. With it, you will always have a safe harbor within yourself. I leave you with this thought. Stillness is not where life stops. It's where life begins to make sense. And once you've found it, you'll never again confuse movement for progress or noise for truth. When you've cultivated inner stillness, something beautiful happens. You start to see clearly what truly matters to you. And with that clarity comes another essential step in protecting your mind and soul, setting boundaries. Because without boundaries, even the most peaceful inner world will eventually be invaded by chaos. Boundaries are not walls. They are not about shutting people out or living in isolation. They are the framework that protects your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. Think of them as the fence around a garden, not to keep the flowers hidden, but to protect them from being trampled. Many of us struggle with boundaries because we've been taught that saying yes makes us good, generous, and kind, while saying no makes us selfish. But here's the truth: every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are also saying no to something that could have nourished you. And over time, that imbalance is not kindness, it's self-neglect. Philosophically, boundaries are an act of self-respect. They are a recognition of your own humanity and limitations. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that we cannot control the actions of others, only our own responses. But our responses become weaker and less conscious when we are constantly overextended. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling people. It's about controlling access to your most precious resources, your time, your focus, your peace. There's a psychological truth here, too. The human brain has limited bandwidth. We can only handle so much before decision fatigue, emotional burnout, and resentment set in. Boundaries are the way we preserve our capacity for the things that matter most. Without them, even the best intentions eventually lead to exhaustion. But here's the challenge: boundaries will almost always be tested. The moment you start saying no to things you used to say yes to, someone will question you. They might even accuse you of changing. And in a way, they're right. You are changing. You are moving from a life of constant accommodation to a life of intentional contribution. You are no longer giving because you feel obligated. You are giving because you have the energy and desire to do so. And that shift is powerful. It changes the quality of everything you offer to the world. When you have boundaries, your yes becomes more meaningful, and your no becomes an act of truth rather than guilt. I've met people who think boundaries are only about relationships, but they go far beyond that. You can set boundaries with technology, choosing when and how you engage online. You can set boundaries with work, deciding what hours you are available and when you step away. You can set boundaries with your own habits, recognizing when you are overcommitting, overconsuming, or overstimulating yourself. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with yourself. It's easy to say, "I'll just do one more thing," or "I'll rest later." But without self-discipline, even the strongest external boundaries will crumble. Self-respect begins with honoring the limits you've promised yourself you would keep. There's a spiritual depth to boundaries as well. They are a form of stewardship. You have been given a mind, a body, a soul, and a certain number of days on this earth. Boundaries are how you protect that gift so it can keep giving. When you say no to what drains you, you are really saying yes to the life you were meant to live. And I want to make this clear. Boundaries don't have to be harsh to be firm. You can communicate them with compassion. You can decline an invitation without rejecting the person. You can limit your availability without making someone feel unimportant. The key is consistency. A boundary that moves every time someone pushes on it isn't a boundary. It's a suggestion. One of the most liberating moments in life is realizing that you are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your boundaries. You are only responsible for setting them and honoring them. How others feel about your limits belongs to them, not to you. Now, you might be thinking, but what if setting boundaries means I lose people? And yes, that can happen. Sometimes the relationships that relied on your lack of boundaries will not survive the presence of them. But the truth is, any relationship that cannot exist without you depleting yourself was never a healthy one to begin with. When you set boundaries, you invite a new kind of connection into your life, one built on mutual respect, where both sides give and receive from a place of fullness. And when you live this way, you stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. You begin to understand that protecting your peace is not selfish. It's necessary because from that peace flows everything else you have to offer. Imagine a candle. Without boundaries, you are constantly letting the wind blow against your flame, and eventually it will go out. With boundaries, you shield that flame, not so it hides in the dark, but so it can keep burning brightly, lighting the way for yourself and others. So I want to leave you with this yes. You give is a piece of your life you can never get back. Give it wisely, protect it fiercely. And remember, your peace is not something the world will protect for you. That responsibility will always belong to you. Once you've stilled your mind, realigned your priorities, and built those boundaries, you reach a place where peace is no longer just a fleeting moment. It's a way of living. But here's the truth. Peace doesn't mean your life will suddenly be free from storms. The storms will still come. People will still misunderstand you. Life will still hand you unexpected losses, delays, and detours. The difference is that now, you will have built something deeper inside yourself. A sense of inner resilience, a capacity to return to calm even when the waves rise high. And this is where the final step comes in, choosing to live with intention. Because without intention, even the most peaceful soul can drift back into chaos. Living with intention means you are no longer just reacting to life. You are actively shaping it. You are making choices from a place of clarity rather than compulsion. You are asking yourself every day, does this align with who I am and who I want to become? So many people live on autopilot, moving from one task to the next, of one day to the next, without ever asking if the life they are living is the life they want. They wait for some perfect moment to start living fully. But here's the reality, there is no perfect moment. Life will not pause for you to get ready. You have to begin now with what you have, where you are. Philosophers like Viktor Frankl spoke about the power of purpose, not as a luxury but as a survival tool. In his darkest moments, he found that the people who endured suffering were not necessarily the strongest physically, but those who had a reason to keep going. When you live with intention, you give yourself that reason every single day. But intention doesn't have to mean grand gestures or lifelong missions. Sometimes it's as simple as deciding that today you will speak kindly, you will listen deeply, you will take care of your health, you will honor your time. These are small, deliberate acts that compound into a life of meaning. There's a psychological dimension to this as well. Studies in positive psychology show that when we have clear, intentional goals, our brain filters information differently. We start to notice opportunities, connections, and solutions that we would have otherwise missed. It's not magic, it's focus. When you know where you're headed, your mind becomes better at finding the path. Living intentionally also changes the way you see challenges. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, how can I use this? What can I learn from this? You stop seeing obstacles as personal attacks and start seeing them as part of the journey you've chosen to walk. That shift alone can save you from years of unnecessary suffering. But here's the part we often avoid talking about. Living with intention requires courage. Because the moment you become intentional, you will see more clearly what doesn't belong in your life. And that may mean letting go of habits, of patterns, of even certain people who no longer align with your direction. It may mean making choices others won't understand. And that's where the work you've done up to this point becomes essential. Without inner stillness, you'll be too distracted to hear your own voice. Without clarity you won't know where you're going. Without boundaries, you'll keep letting everyone else's urgency dictate your pace. But with these in place, you are finally free to live in a way that reflects your deepest truth. Some people think intention is about control, about forcing life into a specific shape. But it's not. It's about participation. It's about showing up fully, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's saying, I will not just let life happen to me. I will engage with it, shape it, respond to it with wisdom. And when you live this way, peace stops being something you have to go searching for. It becomes the natural byproduct of knowing that your life, however imperfect, is aligned with your values. Even in uncertainty, you can rest knowing you are on your own chosen path, not someone else's. I believe that the deepest peace comes when we realize we don't have to wait for a better version of life to start living fully. We stop postponing our joy. We stop waiting for the ideal conditions. We stop saying, I'll be happy when, and start saying, I will live with purpose now. And that's the invitation I want to leave you with. Do not wait for life to be easy before you choose peace. Do not wait for the world to slow down before you choose intention. Do not wait for everyone to understand you before you live in alignment with your truth. Because the truth is, peace is not something you find, it's something you build. And you build it choice by choice, day by day, moment by moment. Even when life is overwhelming, you have the power to pause, to realign, to set boundaries, and to step forward with purpose. And when you do, you'll realize that peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of clarity. It's the quiet strength inside you that says, no matter what comes, I will not be moved from who I am. So I ask you, when you leave here today, what will you choose? Will you go back to living by default, letting the noise dictate your steps? Or will you live with intention, creating a life that not only feels peaceful, but powerful because it is truly yours? The choice is in your hands, and it always has been.